A woman is very surprised to see her husband with another woman. Meanwhile, the man was walking with another woman and they end up bumping into the woman. This causes her to drop her stuff on the floor and the man bends down to pick it up. At that moment, he realizes that it was his wife and then he asks what she was doing there. She says that she had bought the things to make his food and then asks who that woman was. She then notices that the other woman had the ring and asks the man what was going on there. He then tells her that she should pick up the food that had fallen on the floor and go home and cook it, but the woman said that she would not do that and that she couldn't take that situation anymore. She then walks away to the other woman says that was her taxi. The man then goes to the woman and asks where she was going. She says she was going as far away from the man as possible, but he said that she should stop that. Go home. She said that she was tired of him and that he would never again tell her what she could and couldn't do. He tells her that she should think about what she was doing as she couldn't come back to him later apologizing. He said they would never work out as she couldn't give him a child. This makes her very sad and starts to cry. At that moment, the taxi driver hands the woman a handkerchief so that she can dry her tears. He then asks where she was going and she starts to say that she was 33 years old and that 12 of those years she dedicated to her husband. She then goes back to crying and wonders what she was going to do now. The taxi driver then tells her that she should stop crying and that she should have known that the man was treating her like an object. The woman then says that she didn't know what to do now, as all she knew was to dedicate herself to her husband. She then says that she didn't know what to do and that she didn't know what people would think now. She then goes back to crying and says that now she was going to divorce her husband and that they didn't know what her friends would think of her. The taxi driver then tells her to calm down. The woman then says that she was going to have to go back to her husband as no one would want to be with her and that she would never find anyone else. The driver then says nothing and just starts his car. She then asks where he was going and he says that she needed to trust him. Later, he arrived at a location and the taxi driver helps the woman out of the car. She then asks what they were doing there and he told her to stay calm and just follow him. He then takes the woman to a park. When he got to it, pick up a stick from the ground. She is startled and hands her ring to the man, saying that she didn't want him to do her any harm. He then tells her that she needed to calm down as he wasn't going to do her any harm. He takes her to the park, then asks her what she thought of that location. She says it was a very beautiful place and asks why he took her there. He then says he needed to show her something at that moment. Another man arrives at the scene with a woman in a wheelchair. The man thanks the other man for his help and says he could leave. The woman asks why and says she didn't understand what he was trying to say to her. The man then says that despite everything that had happened, she was still his wife. The woman then apologizes to the man for the way he had spoken about the woman and then asks what happened to her. The man begins to say that she had been in a serious accident and that she was like that because of it. He says the doctors had said she would only live for 2 weeks and that they wanted the man to give up on her. He says that, because of that, he decided to take his wife out of the hospital and take care of her alone. The woman then says that despite everything that had happened to him, he was still very faithful to his wife. She asked what he was doing there, so the man said that everyone has dreams and that was the place where he had met his wife. He says that, because of that, he decided to buy a house nearby so he could take his wife there every day, as that was her favorite place. The woman then asks the man what had kept his wife. live all this time, and he says it was love. He says that love made him believe that one day she would get better. He says that his wife had taught him that love overcomes any barrier and that it will heal all wounds. He says love made people move forward and overcome all obstacles. He then goes to his wife and starts caressing her face. This makes the woman start thinking, and she decides to take her ring off. Some time passes, and the woman goes to her husband's house. He then asks why she is there, and then she hands him a document. He then asks what that meant, and then the woman says that she wanted the man to write on that paper the reasons that made him love her. He said that she should understand that he had a mistress, so the woman asks him to write it down on paper, but he says that he would not do that and that he would continue with his mistress. At that moment, the woman takes out her phone and she realizes that a minute has passed. He then asks what she was doing, and she says that a minute had passed for him to write the reasons that made him love her, but that he hadn't done that. She then says that she finally understood that she had wasted 12 years of her life with the man. She says that life was worth living when she was with someone who loved her, but that man was not that person. The man then says that he was tired of that conversation and that she should leave as he already had his mistress, that he didn't need her anymore. At that moment, the man's mistress arrives. The woman then proceeds to tell her husband that she was happy to see that he was happy with what was happening. She says that before they got married, they had decided to split everything in half. He told me yes, and that they would have to settle it with a lawyer. She then reveals to the man that that was a lie and that everything he had actually belonged to her. She says that the man had nothing, so she owned everything, including the clothes he was wearing. He is surprised by that, and she says that when he needed it, he could take his clothes and leave. At that moment, the man's mistress asks if he didn't own that house. The man then says that despite everything, he was happy with his lover and that they would live together. The mistress then says that the man had lied to her and that he had said he owned it all, but the man says that they could work together and win it back. She then says that she was only with him because he was rich, but that now he had nothing and so she would leave. She then leaves and the man asks her to come back, but she doesn't listen. The woman says that when he wanted to leave, he could take his clothes and leave. Some time passes there, the taxi driver was with his wife in the park they loved so much. He was feeding his wife, and when he leaves, she calls out to him. This makes him very happy, and so he goes to her and hugs her. She says that she loved the taxi driver and he said that she loved him very much and then hugs her.